And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show. It is Monday, July 4th, 4th of July holiday, Independence Day, if you will. Ooh, I should go watch that movie later today. Hadn't thought about it. Anyway, before we do anything, we've got a 7-game MLB slate to break down. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. I said I didn't introduce my co-host here for today. That would be Adam Scherer. Ship my money, as you guys know him. Big weekend of sports. Adam, how did everything shake out for you over Saturday and Sunday? How was baseball? How was MMA? How was PGA? Anything else I missed?
Yeah, everything was good. Well, PGA sucked. MMA tournaments sucked, but I was happy with my lineups. I also advanced to the finals of the live finals, so we're going to Dallas the end of the month for the Nunez fight. That will be fun. Then won a baseball tournament. So Saturday was really good. And then yesterday,
you won the early slate on Saturday, right?
Yeah, won the early slate on Saturday. Came in 5th on the main slate. So didn't quite get there for both wins. That would have been fun. But yeah, and then just completely took yesterday off. So felt good.
What was the early? 10, 20?
50.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Was it a big early?
Yeah, it was. I don't remember how many games, but it might have only been like 5 games, but
okay.
It was like a 175K prize pool.
Nice. That'll work. Probably felt pretty damn good.
Yeah, it did. It'd been a rough couple of months.
It happens. Yeah, golf was awful. I talked about it on the Process show this morning. Monday through Friday, everybody doesn't stop for holidays. When your most exposed and second most exposed golfers are the two that withdraw within the first 2 hours of the tournament, you're probably not shaping up to have a good day. And I certainly did not. 10 of 150 lineups cashing. 76 of my 150 lineups were dead to a 6 of 6 in like the first hour. I was just gone, man. Brutal. Yeah. I went back and saw that you were pretty heavy on day. Alex had more day than I did. So I was like, okay, I can't be too mad.
To be fair, judging day based on me and Alex is never going to be right because we always play that guy too much.
So do I. So it wasn't going to make much of a difference for me either. I did enjoy Sean Dre tried to dunk on me in the Process comments about day being a fish play. And I was just like, of course you did. Of course you did. By the way, here's Adam's numbers. Here's Alex's numbers. He was 7% owned. I would go back and do the exact same thing again, unless I knew that he was going to withdraw, at which point then I won't play him at all. But I don't regret any way that I built my lineups. I also don't know who's in my lineups until they're submitted. Apparently, because Jason Day tends to withdraw a lot, you shouldn't have had him. Yeah, which is just really, really smart strategy. I thought we would have a better 4th of July slate. Am I wrong in
I
remembering
really was
this?
Expecting like a big afternoon slate. Like I don't get why baseball did this.
It's not even that it's like small or like there's just not a good one anywhere. There's no fun. There's no like 4th of July spectacular contests type stuff on DraftKings main. It's your standard issue relay throw for a $250,000 prize pool. Like there's nothing. Well, I anticipated us having like ridiculous stuff today. Maybe I just don't remember in the past, but today stinks from a slate perspective.
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed. The only logical conclusion is Rob Manfred sucks and hates baseball.
Probably true. You know who doesn't hate baseball? Us. And that's why we're going to break it down right now. 7-game slate. Are you ready?
Yep. Let's go.
I love the excitement is palpable. Hit that like button, everybody, for the incredible just gusto that Adam is providing right now. I wonder why that is at this point in time. Tough night?
Something like that, yeah.
Padres and Mariners, very classic 6:40 p.m. start game. 4.5 run implied total for the Pods, 3.4 for the Mariners. We've got Sean Manaea on the hill for San Diego, Chris Flexen going for Seattle, and even in a 7-game slate, no one's touching Chris Flexen, and I do not disagree. Everyone, on the other hand, touching Sean Manaea. 3 guys are, let's just say, 50% owned today. Manaea's at 49, but I'm going to round up a little bit. 3 guys are soaking up 150% of our pitching exposure. Manaea is one of them. He's also 28% owned on FanDuel. I don't really have like a huge disagreement here. I think Manaea is the second best option of the pitchers today, but even at the same time, the ownership to me completely justified.
Yeah, completely agree. 9K is a very reasonable price tag here. You have Seattle's basically a league average offense, but also a little bit of a watered down lineup. No Jesse Winker here, although against Manaea, that's not necessarily a good thing for him. I think you are expected to have Crawford back Rodriguez, I think, is still likely to be in the lineup. Seems like they're staggering their suspensions, but overall, a pretty good spot for Manaea. He's certainly one of the most talented pitchers on the slate. 26% strikeout percentage, 3.77 xFIP this year. Completely understand why he's getting that ownership.
Yeah, I'll hit you with the question of ranking the 340% guys in a bit. Do you have any justification for flexing here?
No, not particularly. I mean, it's only a 7-game slate, so there's always, a case to be made for just getting to a low-end pitcher, but nothing about Flexen stands out. The matchup against the Padres is average. Flexen for the season's only struck out 16% of hitters, 5.02 xFIP. I don't have any sort of reasoning that you would want to get to Flexen.
Okay. I think we're on the same page then. Let's talk bats in this one. I thought that there would be more to talk about here. For some strange reason, there isn't. I assumed the Padres would just have a bigger share of ownership in this matchup against Flexen, with Flexen getting no ownership whatsoever. The Padres are 8th in aggregate ownership, 9th in top stack, 8th in our stack score. I have them in the exact same spot. Clearly I want to get to, someone like Manny Machado, but I don't think they grade out all that interesting. They're just there.
Yeah, I'm with you. Flexen certainly isn't good, so it's not that I mind taking bats against him. But he's not horrible as far as limiting power. 163 expected ISO to lefties, 211 to righties. The Padres are reasonably priced. You did get Profar salary coming down quite a bit. Manny's down to 5,100, so that's nice. Cronenworth down to 4,500. He had been, I think, 5,700 at one point last week. So I do like that the prices have come down a bit. I like that they're not getting much ownership, but I still think that there are better spots to get to.
Yeah, we're on the same page here. Clearly, Machado works. If Profar's in the leadoff spot at 4,400, I'm totally fine getting there. But I don't have anything that I see that's super highly likely for a cash game on the Padres. That's for sure. Clearly, Machado is fine, but I don't think he's that guy.
Right, yeah. I mean, Machado at 5,100 stands out. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ends up being the cash game third baseman. Mazara is only 2K, so potentially that ends up helping you out some on a 7-game slate. But yeah, just kind of an average spot, I think.
Yeah, I think Jose Ramirez, as per usual, is the best third base option. He is pulling the most ownership, probably the first guy that's going to get in there in a comparable price tier to Machado.
He's 5K too.
Yeah, so it's probably there. Muncy, Escobar, Moncada, as you mentioned, 2,400. Arcia, 3,500. These are guys that are in and around that potential area, but I don't see a lot here. And then for the Mariners side, any value in getting to Seattle on the opposite side of Manaea being in half of the lineups? They rank about as bad as they can.
Yeah, it's a pretty tough sell because you're not even getting a discount on the guys that you would want to get to. Julio Rodriguez is still $5,600. Suarez is still $4,700. So it's not like you're getting a big, facing an ace discount and you can get those guys at low ownership and a cheap price tag. It's purely an ownership play, purely a leverage play against Manaea's ownership. And I think I'll just have difficulty getting to it.
Yeah, I don't have anything that I really want to add here. So I think we're done with this Mariners game.
Yeah.
Just ugly start for a double West Coast 640 start. It's just, this game doesn't feel like it belongs where it is. That's all I got. So let's talk about schedule for the rest of the day. And because it is the holiday season, and by holiday season, I mean it's the 4th of July, there's not a lot of sports going on. So MLB Deeper Dive at 440 or 445, something in that neighborhood. Adam, I believe that is you. Let me double check it.
It is.
It is. So it's you and Eric.
Me and Eric.
It's you and Eric on the Deeper Dive at 4:45, and then myself and Greg will be back for Live Before Lock at 5:45. From a live perspective, that's all we've got today. It's baseball, and that's what you get. But we've got a ton of pre-recorded content that will be posted to the channel. Your tournament plays videos. Greg's got videos. We've got betting videos all over the place, particularly on the Odd Shopper channel. So check all of that good stuff out. Free content, though, for today. This one's easy. MLB player projections. It's the 4th of July, everybody. Get in the door with the product that you're looking for most when you watch this show. Game number 2, which I actually want to look up quickly to make sure that I have the right line. This is a double header for the Tigers and Guardians, and there wasn't a line on the later game earlier today. And best I could tell, there still isn't. So cross that bridge when we come to it. I have it as a 4.5 run implied total for the Tigers, 4 for the Guardians. Alex Fado and Connor Pilkington going in this one. Both guys getting a little bit of ownership. Fado at 5%, 6,100 on DraftKings. Pilkington 8% at 6K. I actually like getting to Pilkington here in a paydown option, but it's possible that when the line comes out, this changes a little. How do you feel about Pilkington for 6K?
Yeah, we don't have him in the top pitchers tool right now, but I do like that price tag there. It's a good matchup against Detroit. Obviously, that kind of goes without saying. Pilkington's got decent strikeout stuff, 22% strikeout percentage for the season, elevated 4.65 xFIP, elevated 12.5% walk percentage. But at 6K, I think he's basically priced for those risks, and he can certainly put together some strikeouts against Detroit. So I do like him as a value option here.
Yeah, he popped up pretty well for me as like the preferred paydown. Do you see the same sort of scenario for Fado on the opposite side?
No, I think it's a much more difficult sell there because the matchup's a lot more difficult in terms of Cleveland being a productive offense, but also Cleveland being a very difficult offense to strike out. On top of that, Faedo's not particularly good. Doesn't have quite the same strikeout stuff as Pilkington. Only an 18% strikeout percentage this year. He's given up more power with 1.3 home runs per 9. 4.69 xFIP is almost identical, but I think between the two, Pilkington's the one that pretty clearly stands out because of the matchup.
Well, speaking of that matchup, we have ownership coming into both sides of this. It's kind of weird. The Guardians are 5th in ownership. The Tigers are 6th. But at the same time, there's a giant gap between those two numbers. There's clearly a line drawn in the sand. We'll start with Cleveland since they're more owned. And obviously for Cleveland, we're getting a ton of ownership coming to Jose Ramirez. No issues there. He is getting way more of it than sort of the rest of the lineup is. Do you like stacking Cleveland in this spot against Fado?
Yeah, I do. I don't think he's a particularly good pitcher. I do like the Cleveland offense. So far this year, that's not him. Faedo against lefties, only a 14.4% strikeout percentage, 278 expected ISO, just sets up really, really well for Jose Ramirez in particular, but also it makes Josh Naylor look good. Steven Kwan is still cheap and leading off. Jimenez is a lefty. So I do think that this is a pretty appealing lineup to get to.
So do I. I actually thought the top stack odds might actually be a little bit higher in this one. We'll see where we actually end up as we get this lineup in, but I have no problem getting to Cleveland. They're affordable, outside of Rosario and Ramirez, pretty easy pricing. What about the Tigers side, where we, as per usual, sort of get one of the best value stacks on the slate? This is the number one top value stack, 22% likelihood there. Not all that likely to be the top stack, 11th out of the 14 teams, 6th in aggregate ownership. It's mostly just Riley Green getting a bunch of ownership and then not a lot coming elsewhere. And this lineup is so cheap outside of Javier Baez, might as well be free. How do we balance that today?
Yeah, it's still just always tough to get to the Tigers for me, especially if they are pulling ownership. Right now, we have them at like 6% aggregate ownership, 4% chance of being the top stack. But like you said, top value percentage. Pilkington has struck out a higher percentage of righties than lefties this year, but he has allowed a 222 expected ISO to righties. Seems like he's gotten pretty lucky so far in his ability to suppress power. Only a 107 actual ISO compared to that 222 expected ISO. So Javi Baez looks good, although he is expensive. Eric Haas, if he's in the lineup, is going to look pretty good. He has some power. Torkelson at minimum salary hasn't been very good so far, but we know that he does have power. He's obviously a top prospect. He was drafted first overall a few years ago. So I don't mind getting there. And then, you mentioned Riley Green, lefty, but $2,500, one of the top hitting prospects in baseball. Against what is certainly not a lights out lefty. So I get it from a value standpoint, but typically when ownership's going to this team, I end up looking elsewhere just because they're not very good.
You assume you get more Guardians than Tigers?
Yeah, most likely.
Okay. Cash perspective, as we mentioned before, Jose Ramirez, probably the third baseman du jour, could just as easily not be, but at the same time, I think it's him.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it's not.
I think my mouse just died. Sure did. It's really hard to do? This show without a mouse.
Yeah, that doesn't seem great.
Oh, connected. Hey, we back. I don't know what happened, but welcome back. Thanks, Bluetooth. All right. Do you think that I'm guessing Kwan and Riley Green are both probably mildly interesting from a cash perspective. Probably doesn't happen, but either one of those guys could be there. 2,500 for Riley Green hitting leadoff. Quan is 3,600 also hitting leadoff on the road. Better spot. Don't expect either one of those two guys, but like it's not broken if you get them.
Yeah, that's how I view it as well. Like the pricing looks good on both guys. I don't know if they end up being, the actual top options or not.
Yeah. I got nothing else for Tigers and Guardians.
Me neither.
Man, I was really about to just go try to find another mouse and figure out how to do this because that was about to suck. Stupid magic mouse from Apple. I don't know if I like it or not. Reds and Mets. 4.4 run implied total for the Reds. 5.2 for the Mets. Hunter Green going for Cincy. Taijuan Walker going for the Mets. Neither guy pulling any ownership. This is going to be a very interesting discussion point for me, along with you. 8,800 for Walker, 8,600 for Green. So they're basically the same guy from a pricing perspective. I don't love their projections. Like, I don't think that they grade out as well as the things that are above them in the nines. I also think that 3% and 3% are wrong. These are the guys that we sort of talk about in every one of these shows where I think they should be like 10 to 15% owned and they're just not getting it. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, I do. Within individual lineups, for sure, I think you can pivot from those more popular pitchers down to Green or Walker. There is still upside. I mean, obviously, it's not a great matchup for Hunter Green, but he does have very good strikeout stuff. 28.9% strikeout percentage, 4.12 xFIP, 2.43 home runs per nine, going up against the Mets. So you can see how it's a very dangerous matchup, but the strikeouts are still there. And then on the other side, Taijuan Walker, kind of just one of the more enigmatic pitchers, I think, where overall this season, he only has an 17.7% strikeout percentage, but he does have a 3.89 xFIP. And start to start, you can certainly still see a ceiling from him. Cincinnati's not a great team offensively. It is a tough park to pitch in. I understand why the ownership is so low, but within individual lineups, I do think that's a place you can look to save some ownership if you need to.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. I have them basically, I have Walker with a slightly higher projection, but Green with like the higher true ceiling. That makes sense to me considering how much additional strikeout stuff he has. I expect to get to these guys a little bit more frequently than what we're showing. I think it's pretty easy. Urias is the guy that I'm willing to give a little bit of a haircut to that 48% ownership and just sort of redistribute a little bit there. But I guess we're looking at this in the same way. And I'm always happy to have someone against the Reds. We do have to talk about the Mets bats, though, because while Hunter Green is not getting any ownership, there's kind of a reason for it. And that is because the Mets are the number one owned stack on today's slate. They are number one in our top stack tool, number one in stack score. We've got everybody that I see in the lineup that I have entered in double digits in ownership, including Marte at 20. You get Lindor at 18, Nimmo at 17. This is the chalk stack of the day. How do you feel about getting to the Mets?
I think they look good. The ownership is certainly something you'll need to keep an eye on. Right now, we have the same top stack percentage as aggregate ownership, so it's not like it's too out of control. And I kind of mentioned it when I was talking about Green from a tournament perspective as a pitcher, but he's really struggled with limiting power this year. 197 expected ISO to lefties, 268 so far to righties. You get a nice positive park shift for the Mets going into Cincinnati. They're reasonably priced. The middle of the order with Marte, Lindor, and Alonso and McNeil is relatively expensive. But you still only have the three guys 5K or above. The bottom of the order is very cheap if you want to save some salary in that way. So I understand why the ownership's going there. I do think it looks like a very high upside spot for the Mets.
Yeah, you and me both here. Kind of makes the like Mets plus Taijuan Walker lineups look a little bit better because obviously you're not going to get to the you're not taking the ownership discount on Green to get to the Mets bats. So I don't hate the idea of going to Walker plus the Mets stack plus whatever else ends up showing up. A lot of cash options here coming from the Mets. I'm guessing you can sort of justify most of the lineup in some way, but do you see anybody that immediately stands out?
No, I do think the pricing's pretty correct in that there's not any broken pricing at the top.
No, I don't see anything too crazy. Like everybody's 4,700, 4,800, 5K, 5,300, 5,500. Like you're paying the full freight. They're just still good plays at that point. But anybody can be the guy that shows up in that lineup then. What about on the Red side? Is there anything here for you? 7th in aggregate ownership. You don't get sort of any benefit of getting any leverage on the opposite side of Taijuan Walker. What's there for the Reds for you, or nothing?
It's still a nice park. It's still a pitcher that in Walker that is certainly capable of coming out and having a bad start. 192 expected ISO to lefties, only 148 to righties so far this year. There's nothing that looks great from the Reds, I don't think. You do still have a pretty cheap Joey Votto, a very cheap Mike Moustakas. Jonathan India is pretty inexpensive at 4,100, but Cincinnati to me nowhere near as appealing as the Mets.
Yeah, I don't see much here outside of India. I don't really see anything that matters. So I don't have anything else for Reds and Mets. We good?
Yep.
Let's talk about the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be Prize Picks. First and foremost, this is what you need to do. Use the promo code AWESEMO. You will get a 100% deposit match bonus of up to $100. So if you put in 50, they're only matching with 50. But if you put in $100, they will match with another 100. So you're starting off your bankroll $200. We've got the free Prize Picks player prop tool at stokastic.com that will help you out tremendously. You're not worried about sharks or optimizers. All you have to do is pick player props, and that's across all sorts of different sports, whether it's MLB, WNBA, highlight. The hot dog eating contest is on there today. Joey Chestnut over under 7.25 hot dogs per minute. Can we just stop before we even continue this Prize Picks line? The line on Joey Chestnut. Now, you know what the bulk is. 7.25 hot dogs per minute is his rate. One full hot dog on a bun every 8 seconds? That is uncomfortable to think about. And he's just going to devour these wieners.
Sean's on weighing in on Twitter with his take on why he likes the over.
It's a moisture thing for the hot dogs, correct? Did I read that correctly?
Lack of humidity could dry the dogs and increase throat friction, although the relatively low temps could mean less time drinking water. Assuming this is outdoors and not in a dome, Chestnut over seems like the move, is Sean's on stake here.
Normally, I'm pro throat friction, but I guess that's not a good thing for a hot dog eating contest. So we'll cross. I'm just going to have to assume that that's not the best thing that you could do. What is the best thing that you could do is get a couple of the thoughts on over-unders that I'm going to give Adam right now, including the first one, the guy that we just talked about, Hunter Green, over-under 24.5.
We have him at 25.3, so I guess slight over.
Okay. Back to one of the better options for today, Sean Manaea, over-under 36.5.
Under.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to take the under there as well. And then we'll close that out with Taijuan Walker. Back to the most recent game we talked about. This one seems easy to me. 30.5.
Under.
Yeah, snap under for me there. I've got him at 25.9. So that's where I would like to be. Guys, go sign up at Prize Picks. Use the promo code AWESEMO and get that deposit bonus. It will help you out. I promise you that it will. 4 more games to go. We're going to the Braves, the reigning defending undisputed champions of baseball, taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. 5.2 run implied total for the Braves, looking pretty damn good, tied for the top. Kyle Wright going for Atlanta, Dakota Hudson for St. Louis. No one rostering Dakota Hudson. Don't really see the path to that looking like a smart idea. 24% of the public rostering Kyle Wright today. He's priced up. He's $9,200. He's $100 cheaper than Manoah, $200 more expensive than Manaea, but sandwiched between both of these guys at half of the ownership. How appealing is Wright?
I think he looks pretty good. I do think that he's a step behind the guys that are pulling the ownership ahead of him. It is a tough matchup against St. Louis, both in terms of St. Louis just being a good offense, but also St. Louis being a very difficult offense to strike out. So far this season, their active roster leads the league in WRC+. They also only have a 19.9% strikeout percentage. But Wright is good. He has a 25.7% strikeout percentage for the year, 3.34 xFIP. So to me, I think the ownership makes sense. That he should probably be a step behind those other guys, but still relatively popular.
Yeah, I think his ownership makes sense. I like him. I think he's properly owned, and I think he should be a bit underneath Manoah and Manaea. That's a weird thing to say back to back. Any Dakota Hudson thoughts?
He's just always difficult to get to. He doesn't strike guys out. 13.3% strikeout percentage is the lowest on the slate. He's not bad. I mean, he's not good, but he's not bad at limiting power. 151 expected ISO to lefties, 173 to righties. I still like the idea of taking some shots at the Braves here, though, just because they are such a high upside offense. They're not pulling much ownership at all. The one thing I will point out is it seems like it's always Atlanta, but this is another situation where we have them right now projected like 3 times as likely to be the top stack versus their aggregate ownership. Every time that happens, the Braves just end up being wildly more popular. So keep that in mind. Probably not as sneaky as it looks right now.
Yeah, I like the Braves at this ownership. To me, they're the best team that you can get to if the data is to be believed. If they really are 4% owned, and it might be because we have a whole game that's in this slate that isn't really in here yet. We don't have a line on the second Guardians Tigers game, but if this holds up, I think it's very obvious to say that the Atlanta Braves are the best stack that you can get to.
Yeah, the issue is just the thing that concerns me is that anybody who looks at data like this for more than 5 seconds is going to come to the same conclusion.
Yep, I completely agree with you. So, and like whether or not they're owned, I think the point stands that I agree with the top stack odds. Like I think they're second, third, somewhere in that neighborhood. I think they look like regardless of what their ownership is, they are a fantastic stack today.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I love getting teams like Atlanta against pitchers like Hudson that don't miss bats. I'll take my chances with guys like Ronald Acuna and Swanson and Olsen and Riley being allowed to hit the ball. Good things typically happen when they're able to put it in play.
It seems like most of these guys aren't really all that viable from a cash perspective. If you get Acuna, I don't think that's the craziest thing in the world. Do you see any other Atlanta options from a cash game?
No, and I think that's why the ownership projection is so low, is that they are relatively expensive. They don't have anybody outside of maybe Acuna that stands out as like the top option. Austin Riley certainly looks good, but he's behind Machado and Ramirez amongst those third base pay up options.
Yeah.
Dansby Swanson's nearly 6K. Matt Olson is 4,600, which is fine, but like there's just a bunch of first basemen. So I do think that's probably why the ownership projection on Atlanta as a whole is so low. They don't necessarily just stand out as the top option at any of their positions, but they are still really high upside bats.
On the Cardinals side, they're not really pulling any ownership, but they are certainly way more likely to be the top stack than their current ownership. Are the Cardinals like sneakily a better play than the Braves?
In some sense, maybe. If we assume that Atlanta's ownership does come up a bit, then I could see it. I mean, it's certainly a worse matchup, but you're talking about a pitcher that is expected to get around 24, 25% ownership. So you have like a quarter of the field there, and you're still talking about a very, very good St. Louis offense where it's not so much that that they're particularly likely to have success against Kyle Wright, but when they do have plenty of power in this lineup, and you're negating a quarter of the field when it happens.
Yeah, I think there's something there for the Cardinals. I mean, we're talking about a Cardinals team that has like the 6th best offense per base runs so far this year. You get 24% of the lineups having Kyle Wright on the opposite side, and a Cardinals team that outside of Tommy Edman in the leadoff spot doesn't have a single hitter in the lineup north of 3.5%, 7.6% chance to be the top stack, 2.5 on ownership. Sneaky good stack as far as I'm concerned. Like I think all these pieces, we haven't had a lot of teams lately that I think looked good on the opposite side of pretty sizable pitcher ownership, and I feel like this is one of them.
Yeah, agreed.
Like we haven't been talking about that a lot where you can pick up any additional leverage, but I think there is a bit of a bonus. Like Kyle Wright's good for sure, but there's a little bit of a bonus now for the Cardinals that they just aren't getting, and that's appealing to me. Are no cash options though in the Cardinals lineup.
Agreed.
Anything else in this one?
I wanted to look quickly and just see. It seems like Kyle Wright's been dropping off a little bit. Like his strikeout percentage seems like it's going down every single time I talk about him. I just kind of wanted to see if there's anything that shows up. Yeah, I mean, again, it's not a huge thing, but 32 innings pitched over the last 30 days, only a 22.6% strikeout percentage for him. He's still been good though at preventing runs and all of that. Those matchups were against Philly, the Giants, the Cubs, the Pirates, and Oakland. So not exactly teams that you would expect him not to be striking out.
I'm taking a look at his player graph for rolling 15 game K rate. I'm going to bump that down to a smaller sample, rolling 8 game K rate. Down dramatically from May.
And I think it's interesting to note because like the rest of season projections from Zips have him at 22.3% strikeout percentage, which he's well above right now. So just kind of interesting. Maybe we do kind of see what he's been doing recently be the norm as opposed to what he did at the start of the season.
I'd like to check his velocity out too in comparison to it. I wonder if it's down. It is.
Not drastically, though. I mean, 94, 94.9, 94.6, 94.9, 94.5. He's averaged 94.9 for the season.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's really weird to see. I wish you could see what I have on my screen right now. So rolling 8-game average of his strikeout rate, his K percentage, and his fastball velocity. And they're in like lockstep. As that strikeout rate is climbing, the velocity is there. As that strikeout rate has dropped pretty dramatically since mid-May, so has the fastball velocity. I mean, it's basically like 0.8 of a mile per hour, but even still, it's interesting to see those things moving in lockstep. Something to keep in mind. My filler arc with the super chat said, "Why are you working today? Do you guys hate freedom? Is it worth picking Cleveland for the early game, or will they phone it in knowing there is another game?" I don't know anything about the early game, the slate, the size, if it's just a showdown or if it's a part of anything. So I can't help there. Why are we working today? Because there are no holidays in sports.
That is true.
Our holidays come during All-Star breaks.
Yep.
I also don't care.
I'm trying to. I don't even know who's pitching in the first Cleveland game.
No clue. I didn't look at it. All right, we'll keep it moving. White Sox and Twins. 4.7 run implied total for the White Sox, 4.4 for the Twins. Johnny Cueto and Dylan Bundy. Cueto's about, 6% owned. Bundy getting no love. I don't really see these guys as all that different relative to salary. I kind of just don't want either of them with any sort of volume. I'd rather go down to Pilkington if I needed to. But where do you like Cueto or Bundy here?
No, I don't like the matchup for either guy. I don't like either guy as a pitcher. Dylan Bundy's only striking out 17% of hitters this year, still giving up power, just not striking guys out. Johnny Cueto has been a little bit better, striking out 20.5% of hitters. 3.97 xFIP is solid, but this just still isn't a Minnesota offense that I'm really looking to pick on with somebody like Cueto. I have a difficult time making a case for either one.
Well, at least we're on the same page there. That's easy enough. We'll talk hitters, and I think we're going to have a lot to talk about here. I'm really curious which side you like more. We've got the White Sox second in aggregate ownership, 15%. We got the Twins fourth at 12. Not a huge difference there. This is our fifth and eighth team in top stack, but the White Sox are incredibly cheap. So I'm just going to ask you broadly, which team do you prefer here?
Chicago.
Not what I thought you were going to say. Okay, hit me with it.
I just think it's a better matchup against Bundy. Cueto is certainly not somebody that I mind picking on, and I understand why Minnesota's getting some ownership, but Bundy's allowed a 189 expected ISO to righties this year, 187 to lefties, not striking out guys from either side, only a 12.6% strikeout percentage to lefties. He's not really struck left-handed hitters out for a while, even back when he was relatively good at times. He typically struck out righties at a very high clip, didn't strike out lefties as much, but now only striking out righties at a 20% clip as well. I think Tim Anderson looks really good. You have a cheap Andrew Vaughn. Luis Robert is relatively inexpensive and looks good. Same can be said for Abreu. Very inexpensive Gavin Sheets and Yohan Moncada. I like the combination of value and upside in this spot for Chicago. Not to say I don't like the Minnesota side, because Buxton obviously always looks good. Arias is fine. Correa is reasonably priced, as is Kepler. Polanco's cheap. You get a couple of top hitting prospects with Miranda and Kirilloff for sub 3K. So I get the love for the Minnesota side as well. But between the two, I do lean Chicago.
Okay. I guess Chicago to you would be like a perfect opportunity to work in a Taijuan Walker or Hunter Green.
Yeah, probably. Individually, with the White Sox, you do have, AJ Pollock's at 9%, Louis Garcia's at 9%, McGuire's at 8%. So while the guys that you really want to play are all getting some ownership, you can offset it a little bit with those guys.
There's certainly some cash options in this one. Tim Anderson, Lou Bob, Sheets, Buxton on the opposite side. Talk to me about the Twins, though. Like, how far behind the White Sox are the Twins for you? Are you as interested? Does the ownership bother you at all?
I think they're similar. Like, they're just a little bit behind for me, but Cueto has also not been great at limiting power this year. 204 expected ISO to lefties, 189 to righties, 21.2% strikeout percentage to righties, 20% to lefties. So it's a good spot for the Twins as well. I do like the pricing on Miranda and Kirilloff being really inexpensive. But just, in general, the Twins lineup is solid. I just don't think the pricing is quite as favorable as it is for the White Sox.
That's fair. I don't really know what I prefer here. I mean, the White Sox are just so easy to get to. I just worry that I'm going to have I don't know if I get to the White Sox as much as that ownership shows. The Braves ownership changing will also play a decent role in this. I don't think I have anything else to add. This is certainly a game that you're going to be attacking pretty aggressively from a hitting perspective. And if you're playing cash games, you're probably touching into this one for a few options at the very least. A large chunk of a cash player pool is coming out of White Sox Twins.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
A's and Blue Jays. 2.9 run implied total for the A's, 4.6 for the Blue Jays. Before I tell you who the starters are for that game, please hit that like button. I think we were just shy of 100 last I looked. Let me double check it. I don't have it up in front of me right now. 348 concurrent viewers, 90 likes. Yeah, go ahead and bump that bad boy up. We can get over 100 fairly easily. Cole Irvin going for Oakland. Alek Manoah going for Toronto. Irvin's essentially not pulling any ownership. Manoah, on the other hand, as the most expensive arm on the slate, 9,300. He's also essentially the most owned guy. Both he, Manaea, and Urias are basically all 48% owned. I don't have a disagreement here. I think Manoah is the best option on the slate today. What do you think about Manoah, and what do you think about him in relationship to the other two?
Yeah, I agree. He's slightly more expensive than Manaea, than Manaea, but the matchup's really good going up against Oakland. I think that's probably the best matchup out of Colorado, Seattle, Oakland. You could certainly make a case for Colorado, but Manoah's got good strikeout stuff. He's a good young pitcher, almost a 23% strikeout percentage. Typically doesn't walk guys. 3.77 xFIP. Everything looks good there. If I had to pick one guy, I do think he's the one that I would get to first.
I'm glad we're on the same page there. Anything for you for Irvin?
No, just a tough matchup for him. You're going to get a right-handed heavy Toronto lineup most likely. He's not a very good strikeout pitcher, only a 17.6% strikeout percentage against righties, 282 expected ISO. I don't have any semblance of an argument to make for Cole Irvin.
All righty. Well, let's talk Blue Jays first, I guess. Sort of like the alternate version of the Braves today, just with a slightly lesser line. They are 10th in aggregate ownership, but 6th in top stack odds. Their top stack is twice as high as their current ownership. They're not easy to get to financially, but good stack with a shortstop first catcher option in 2, 3, 4. I have the Blue Jays ranked a bit higher than we do right now. And given the ownership, this is going to be like more often than not. I would like to get to Toronto at 4% aggregate ownership.
Yeah, same here. I'm surprised they're not pulling more. I mentioned the numbers for Irvin against right-handed hitters this year. And then you look at that Toronto lineup and, you have Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, Kirk, Hernandez, Gurriel, Chapman, Espinal has been good. It is a negative park shift for them going into Oakland. Tough to hit home runs there. You do get outs because you foul balls off, 10 rows deep and they get caught because the foul territory is massive. But still, just a ton of upside for this lineup, even with the negative park.
Yeah, it's just... I'm guessing you assume the Braves pick up more ownership, but the Blue Jays probably don't just soak it up.
Yeah, I like looking at the top stack tool right now. I would expect Atlanta's the one that people go to first.
Okay, that's fine by me. I will happily get to more Toronto, like I do basically every single day. I mean, I see Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, Kirk, and Teoscar as all like mildly to pretty aggressively. I don't know what I was saying. Something about positive leverage. It doesn't matter. Don't DM me. At least you said that also could have got a lot worse if you told me it was a different taste.
Yeah,
I could have laughed even harder. A couple of examples that are very obvious that I can't say on this stream. A's bats here against the most owned pitcher.
No. I mean, it's not a good park. It's not a good team. It's not a good lineup. It is a pitcher that I have a lot of respect for. If I'm playing that game, I think I would just rather go to the Cardinals just because the offense is so good.
Yeah, I think you and I are on the same page here. This is the worst possible team you can get to in the worst possible park. Even if it doesn't go well for Manoah, I don't think it's particularly likely to go well for Oakland. They have the lowest implied total on the slate. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, not that I like want to get in the habit of predicting exactly how things go, but like it just strikes me as a spot where like you were saying, even if Manoah ends up being mediocre, it's a lot easier to envision Oakland just kind of, singling him to death and,
Yeah.
him running bad in terms of BABIP than it is Oakland just like lighting him up and going crazy. Whereas with a team like the Cardinals, it's just a lot easier to envision the Cardinals just having a good offensive game because they have a lot
Right.
of good hitters.
Exactly. Yeah, like I have Oakland as the second worst lineup on the slate today. Probably third. It's tied with the Rockies, but it's a road game for the Rockies, and their splits home road are actually legitimately more extreme than most teams. So let's talk about that Rockies team, unless you have anything else you want to touch on for Blue Jays and A's.
Nope.
Final game, everybody. 5.1 run implied total for the Dodgers, 3.1 for the Rockies. So we're getting this series now in LA instead of Colorado, and it's going to look a little bit different. We've got Julio Urias, or whatever the R is supposed to sound like, even though that's not the correct way to pronounce this one. You and I are on the actual same page for once. Kyle Freeland going for Colorado. No ownership going to Colorado. No ownership going to Colorado. That is true. No ownership going to Freeland. That is the same. Urias is 48% owned. Maybe we see that change when the Guardians and Tigers game gets added in here. I don't know how much that's going to actually matter, but I think that he should be owned a lot. I think he's the third best pitcher on the slate. I don't think 48% is correct.
To be clear, we're not actually on the same page with pronunciation. My extremely white ass just can't say it correctly, like without sounding like offensive. I just like can't make the sound that I want to make.
Wait, isn't this the one that
Yeah, but
we
then,
have the Dodgers pronunciation guide?
yeah, but I still think it sounds different than the way that we say it. I just can't say it the way that it's supposed to sound.
What's the letter that it's supposed to be?
It's kind of like a D sound, but not a like hard D. I
Just be happy I don't say Urias. How do you feel here with him at 48% ownership?
I like the matchup. You are getting a little bit you're getting a little bit of savings off of Manoah and Minaya, who I think are the better pitchers. Urias, 23.5% strikeout percentage this year, 3.91 xFIP. He's good. I don't think quite as good as those other two, but doesn't need to be. He's a little bit cheaper. He's got a good matchup. Looks good. I'll get to plenty of him.
Yeah, I have no problem. Rank them. Manoah, Minaya, Urias. Yeah, I'm doing it now. I don't care. Rank those three guys. Do you see one that you expect to be lesser than at this point?
Maybe Minaya.
Okay.
My thinking there just being that I do slightly prefer Manoah between the two of them, and then Urias is less expensive, so looks like a little bit better value.
Okay. We don't have anything to talk about for Freeland, right? And you're not going to Rockies bats.
Nothing to talk about for Freeland, and no, not anticipating going to Rockies bats. I mean, Chris Bryant's still cheap. CJ Cron has a lot of power, but certainly not a spot that's going to stand out to me.
Third in aggregate ownership, third in our top stack tool. I like the Dodgers a little bit more from a top stack perspective, more than our top stack tool is showing. We've got Betts at 27% ownership. There's a cash outfielder for you. And if you're not doing that one at 4,300, you're probably making a mistake. Trey Turner, 20% owned today at short. Will Smith, a $5,100 catcher at 20% ownership. How are you seeing this Dodgers ownership? Do you see it as problematic? Are you going this direction? Does this become a team that you'd rather turn into the Braves or the Blue Jays? What do you do with LA?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ownership is probably a little higher than it should be when you look at top stack percentage versus ownership. But there's also some value here because Mookie Betts is only $4,300. I don't know how that possibly happens, but that lets you offset the lineup a little bit. Then you get more normal pricing on Turner, Freeman, and Smith, but the bottom of the order is pretty inexpensive as well. Freeland is not a great pitcher. You are getting him outside of Coors, which is obviously beneficial to him. But 184 expected ISO to righties this year, 292 to lefties. I still like the Dodgers here. I understand why they're getting their ownership, but if things hold how they are right now, I would probably turn some of that into Atlanta or Toronto. Although again, just to caution, I do think Atlanta's ownership ends up being higher than projected.
For sure. Betts, Turner, Smith, Muncy, potential cash game options from the Dodgers side.
Yep.
I'd be surprised if Betts just isn't in there automatically, and I'd be surprised if Muncy isn't one of your second baseman or third baseman.
Yeah, 4,300 for Betts is crazy. For Muncy, like I would still rather find $700 for Ramirez at third. So I think it really just comes down to if he ends up being the second baseman.
Sure. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Just him having the MPE at 4,300 is just going to naturally like allow him more access to that lineup, whether or not you get there or not. He just seems to be a bit of a Swiss Army knife for it. All right, let's sum it up. Favorite pitching options. Don't just say Manoah, Minaya, and Urias.
What if they're my favorite pitching options?
I need a fourth then. I either need a fourth or the flip. I need you to swap somebody out.
From a tournament standpoint, like looking at ownership within a given lineup, I think either of Green or Walker makes sense.
Okay, that's what I want. That's what I want to hear. And I like Pilkington as a full pay down option.
Yeah.
We'll see what we end up getting.
Yeah,
there. We'll see what the line is.
I was looking at the top pitchers tool and he's not in it, but yeah, I do like 6K Pilkington.
Top stacks for today.
Right now, Atlanta, but again, I think that changes. Cleveland, Toronto, White Sox.
Okay. Wrapping this one up a little bit earlier, but it's the holidays, guys. We can't be just here talking about 3-game early slates that we haven't looked at. You're not playing any of the early, are you?
I'm playing.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. It's like 25K first. I haven't looked at
any. Okay, never mind. Well, then I say we get out of here, pack it in. We've got the deeper dive coming up later today, live before lock coming up later today. They're earlier. Lock on DraftKings is at 6:40. So, 2 hours before that is when we're starting the deeper dive. Adam, do you have your GPP videos coming out too?
Yeah, GPP videos will be out after early slate locks. And then I'll be back for the deeper dive at whatever time you said that was.
There we go, everybody. Thank you for being here. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Enjoy another safe day of vacation if you have it. Both Adam and I will be back later on tonight to break this one down again. So good luck. Peace out, everybody. Go America.